Let's get back to the here and now, what we are expecting in terms of data this week, how it will impact trade. And to unpack it all, Peter McGuire from trading.com joins me now. Not seeing you there. Oh, there you go, Pete. Good morning to you. So talk to us about that session on Wall Street on Friday and what opportunities it's thrown up for traders.
Well, I think it was good morning, Nadine. Happy Monday. Yeah, if I start at the Russell 2000 and it was up 3.6%, which was just extraordinary, and building on that, the VIX is down 18%, which was a good move because the S&P 500, just on 2% up, Dow 2.5, cranked through 50,000, that is. And the overall momentum moving forward is one of upbeat. So, let's see how this week unpacks. You've got NFP on Wednesday, which is normally it's the first Friday of the month, but that'll be this Wednesday, tipping about 70,000. As far as jobs, and you've got CPI on Friday. Headline ran at I've just made a note of that, 2.7 in December. So hopefully that can come down a little bit, and it should be game on.
It should be game on. So can we just flesh out some of the big data that we're expecting this week, because it's inflation in the US, so important to the trajectory for the Fed and expectations there.
Absolutely. I mean, you would expect it to be softer than what we saw in December, but that, they've got to wait for the numbers to drop, Nadine, and that'll be Friday. And the overall picture as far as what the Trump administration, and you listen to Scott Bassett and certainly Howard Lutnick, they're all saying that the economy's booming and things are on the up. So that's demonstrated as far as there tells a story also, 70,000 jobs. So it's building on 50,000 we saw last month, and that seems to be, that's a good sign. So overall momentum stronger, and could be a relatively hot performance for Q1 GDP.
Okay, so when it comes to that inflation data, where are we sitting in terms of Fed expectations right now, Pete?
2 cuts by end of year. That's what the Fed are, more or less penciling in. As far as investors, they'll want more than that. And if you look at what the A-team are after, they're looking at certainly more than that, being President Trump and so on. So it's going to be very interesting how this all moves. And don't forget, you've got a midterm at the start of November. So you would expect to see all of that happen by certainly probably the end of the second quarter, and you've got Kevin Warsh falling into it as far as new Fed chair. So does he take the reins earlier than May or wait till May? And it's going to be a very, very dynamic second quarter and third quarter to really examine the footprint as far as what expectations going to be and deliverables, Nadine.
All right, so Pete, when it comes to Japan, we've had that snap election being called. The so-called Iron Lady really solidifying her position in Japanese politics. So what sort of an impact has that had on dollar yen?
Well, you're running it around about 157. It was a landslide, as it says on the screen, absolute landslide, 2/3 majority in the lower house. So that was just extraordinary. And the LDP, the Liberal Democrat Party under Prime Minister Takaichi, is very, very highly thought of. So I'm expecting the yen possibly to move closer to that 160. Have a look as far as the 10-year also. It's up 92 basis points since this time last year, Nadine. So that's a huge move if you examine it across compared to Fed or UK or other major markets. So everyone's piling into the bond market, and you can't take your eyes off the topics or the Nikkei at 54,000. It's just been an extraordinary, up 80% from those April lows for the Nikkei.
Okay, so Japanese Prime Minister Takaichi poised for the biggest post-war election victory in Japan. Now, you referenced the US dollar. It was weaker across the majors on Friday. The Aussie dollar has been bolstered by interest rate expectations here. Where do you see the Aussie? Where is it left as we embark on this week?
Keep a close eye on 71. It's been very choppy, as we've seen over the last week and a half, because you've seen major movement and volatility across the whole complex, being currencies. So let's put a feeler out there. I think it's probably a 70.80 by Wednesday, Thursday. I'm feeling as though the US dollar might come under a little bit more pressure. It's currently at 97.63. So US dollar come off a little bit, Aussie push up, and as you mentioned, off the back of those rate hikes last week for us, And is that going to be the only one, or are we looking at further down the line?
Wonderful. So, Peter, give us an update on oil, please, as we start this Asian session.
63.55 for WTI. You got Brent through 68, Nadine. As far as geopolitical, what's the storyline with Iran? It seems to be very much a work in progress. Also, India and America came to a resolution over the weekend. It'll be finalised in March, but certainly no more buying Russian crude. So President Trump wants to export Venezuelan and naturally US crude as to be a strong component as far as the energy complex globally. So I'm expecting energy prices to soften. Let's just see where it is over February, and is there going to be any heat come out of the Russia-Ukraine situation? Is that going to be resolved in the first half? So yeah, it's still geopolitical. There's got to be work through it. And you can't discount it, Nadine.
Yeah, arguably, gold rose as its safe haven status once again came to the fore. So would we be naive to say that the bouts of extreme volatility in precious metals is behind us?
I don't necessarily think so. I think it'll just continue. I'm not suggesting it's going to be, running at 9s and 10s on a volatility comparison moving forward over a 30-day, but it'll probably, you can't get away from the big story if you're looking at gold and what it's done in the last 12 months, and certainly silver up from 29 to 121 back to $75, $76 at the moment. I'm expecting gold to probably nudge that 5,200, and let's just see how it rolls from there. But volatility has been the name of the game, and if you're trading it, Nadine, 6 and 7%, sometimes 10% blowouts over a trading window. That's just in Asia or when you're looking at the US time zone. So yeah, not for the faint-hearted, but there's a dollar to be made if you've got your hand on the screen.
Yeah, beware. I can tell you in early Asian trade, crude oil futures have dropped more than 1% as the Iran-US nuclear talks continue. Brent is down by 90 cents to 67.15. Yep. E-minis in the States, both the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ e-minis are up. So that is a bit of a sentiment indicator. Oh, we also had the Dow closing above that 50,000 mark on Friday, as you well know, Pete. So dusting off your crystal ball, what are you expecting here in Asia today?
I'm expecting a move to the upside. We've been calling Japan very strong. If they would have listened to the previous probably 6 months, what we do together each Monday morning, Nadine, I always leave it. Keep an eye on the topics or keep an eye on the Nikkei, and it hasn't disappointed. It's up, huge moves to the upside. So I'm expecting stronger day across Asia, led by Japan. I think it'll rise here as well, naturally off the US, and game on. Watch the screens and trade with diligence and push the emotion out the window.